Electric SUVs aren't anything new, but this one is from a brand you might not know yet. So is the BYD Atto 3 a name that everyone should be aware of? Is this going to inspire you to go to the gym? And does it have the most cutting-edge battery technology that we've ever seen in an EV? Or is this a left field choice that should remain unknown? In this review, we're finding out. Before we start, subscribe to see lots more reviews like this and go to whatcar.com for a great deal on your next car. So first, the name. BYD stands for Build Your Dreams, as is helpfully spelled out across the back of the car here. But there is already talk of, on future BYD models, having an option to delete this badging. And the Atto 3 part of the name is inspired by the Atto second, which is the smallest timescale unit in physics. And apparently BYD chose it for the car to suggest that it's speedy, energetic, dynamic. And it's the Atto 3 because there's a smaller Atto 2 and a bigger Atto 4. Only in the UK, those cars are known as the BYD Dolphin and the BYD Seal. Fair enough. And yes, this is a new electric car from China. BYD is a Chinese company that was founded in 1995, and it started out life as a battery manufacturer. But over the years, it's grown to a massive scale, and now it builds not just dreams, but everything from buses to forklifts, and of course, cars. In fact, it makes more than 3 million vehicles a year. You might recognise the BYD name, and if you do, it's probably because you remember around 10 years ago, the BYD E6 was brought over to Europe in extremely small numbers to test the waters over here. It was a fully electric car, but it was crazily expensive and not very good at all, so it quickly vanished without a trace. But you can forget about the E6 because this is an all-new, much more serious, mainstream electric SUV. And in terms of size, this is similar to the Kia Niro EV, so it's going to be up against that and lots of other electric SUVs like the Smart #1 and the Skoda Enyaq. So what is this interior like in this brand new electric SUV? Well, the first thing to point out is that this is apparently inspired by objects from the gym. So you might notice this kettlebell handle style gear lever down here. These contours on the center armrest are apparently supposed to mimic a treadmill. And these big circular air vents are like a dumbbell, apparently. There are lots of other quirky features in here, not necessarily related to a gym, like these strings across the door pockets, which you can actually play a tune on. But the main party piece in this interior is this infotainment system. Now, we are in a range-topping design spec Atto 3, so that gets us this massive 15.6-inch touchscreen infotainment system. On the lower trim levels, you get a 12.8-inch system instead, but they have the same software and the same layout and look. Now, with this huge screen here, this is really very impressive. The first thing to point out is that the response time is lightning quick. This is definitely more like an iPad and not just like some shonky, usual touchscreen infotainment system that you find in a car. It's very, very quick. The resolution is incredibly clear, the graphics are all very nice, and the icons are pretty big as well. Of course, it's touchscreen only. Yes, you've got a voice command function, but like all voice control systems, it's very hit and miss. So it would be better if you had more physical controls to hop between the menus or adjust certain features. But still, considering how easy the icons are to hit and how responsive the screen is, this is really very impressive indeed. But the main talking point with this infotainment system is the fact that at the press of a button, it can rotate to this portrait layout, which begs the question, why would you ever need to do that? Perhaps because really the landscape layout has everything that you'd need in a very easy to see format, but I guess it's quite nice to have this option. But if you press Apple CarPlay in this portrait layout, it will just rotate back to landscape because you can't have Apple CarPlay with the portrait orientation, which is a bit annoying. But you can see the integration of CarPlay is very good in one sense because it takes over the whole of the screen and gives you these massive icons. The only problem is that it also removes the climate controls along the bottom of the touchscreen. So if you do want to change the fan speed or the temperature, then you've got to go into the main homepage and open up the climate control screen at the bottom here, which is a bit of a faff. It would, of course, like all systems, be much easier if there were physical buttons and dials to adjust the fan speed and the temperature. But anyway, This really is a very, very impressive infotainment system because of the incredible graphics, because of how quick the response time is to touch inputs, and because of all the features that it has on it as well. By the way, special mention definitely has to go to the camera setup on the BYD Atto 3. It is incredibly comprehensive. For a start, the resolution is very good, and you can see you've got all these different angles of the car from the outside, and you can even drag it around yourself to make things easier. And also it matches the actual colour of the car and the wheels as well. You also get a driver display which is mounted on the steering column here, and because of where it's mounted, it moves with the steering wheel, so it's always very easy to see no matter how you have your driving position set up, so that's good as well. Now in terms of the overall quality in here, this doesn't necessarily feel like a premium product. The materials aren't terrible. There are some soft touch materials on the dashboard here. It all feels fairly solid. But compared to a really high class quality interior like the Smart #1, this does feel like a step down. It's not the case that this is really cheap and nasty inside though. It just definitely isn't among the best electric car interiors. But it's also not among the worst either. Now, space in the back is okay rather than amazing. Legroom is good. You can see plenty of it. You've also got a flat floor as well. But the problem is headroom, because if you're sat up straight, if you're 6 foot or over, your head will be pressed against the roof lining here. I've got just about enough clearance to not feel too cramped, but any tall adults sat in the back are not going to have much in the way of headroom at all. What is good though is you've got these tall windows that let in a lot of light, but overall a Nero EV offers similar legroom, but it is better when it comes to headroom, and other electric SUVs are as well. So it's okay in the back for adults, but it's not amazing. The boot is also smaller than a Nero EV's. In total, you can fit 6 carry-on size suitcases in the back of this. You can get 7 in a Nero EV, but this is still a good size overall. And what the Atto 3 gets is a height adjustable boot floor, which in its highest setting here, you can see has hardly any loading lip at the front. It also has loads of underfloor storage as well, and because it's height adjustable, you can lower it down to increase the overall capacity that you have in the back here. There isn't a front boot though. Now, what battery does the Atto 3 get, and how far can it travel on a full charge? Well, the first thing to point out is that there's no choice in the lineup, so you can't buy an Atto 3 with a shorter range and a smaller battery, or a longer range and a bigger battery. If you buy this car, you will get a battery with a usable capacity of 60 kilowatt hours. You get a heat pump as standard, and you also have vehicle to load functionality. So if you have the right adapter, then you can essentially turn this into a massive portable 3-pin plug. And the official range of this car is 260 miles. We carried out a real-world range test with this Atto 3 and a number of its rivals, and it managed 215 miles from a full charge. So that is what you can expect in warm summer conditions in the real world from full to flat. Which is not hugely impressive, and not as far as a Nero EV can travel, which would get more like 250 miles in the same conditions. The charging speed of the Atto 3 doesn't impress much either. With a maximum charging rate of 88 kilowatts, its battery can be topped up from 10 to 80% in about 45 minutes. That's around the same charge time you get from a Nero EV, but in the wider electric SUV market, both are pretty slow and pretty disappointing. Some versions of the Skoda Enyaq can charge at 130 kilowatts, while the Smart #1 can charge at 150 kilowatts. As we've said, BYD started life as a battery manufacturer. The Atto 3 gets what's called a blade battery, and it's a lithium iron phosphate unit, LFP, which unlike most other electric car batteries, doesn't need cobalt. So for a start, that's a plus, because the mining of cobalt is quite a contentious issue. The battery is also said to not degrade as quickly as other EVs, and that's mostly down to the fact that if you charge this up to full, then it doesn't have such a negative impact on battery life. And that's one of the main reasons that other EVs suffer the degradation that they do. Charging from flat to full all the time, it really harms those batteries. This is also apparently a very durable battery, but this is less energy dense, so it's heavier than a rival battery with the same capacity. Whatever Atto 3 you go for, you're going to get one electric motor driving the front wheels with 201 brake horsepower. And the claim 0 to 62 miles an hour time is 7.3 seconds, which is pretty much the same as a Nero EV. And you definitely won't be wishing for more pace from this car, especially around town where this feels very at home. Things are smooth, it's very simple to drive at those low speeds. The problem with the Atto 3 is when you're going faster, on country roads or on the motorway. The soft suspension, which is nice around town when it takes the sting out of potholes and road imperfections, but as you go faster, this is really quite bouncy, especially over undulations. And the faster you go, the more fidgety it is. The steering, yes, it's very light around town, which is easy and smooth, but it's very light when you're going quickly as well. And then as you approach the limits of grip around a corner, it can kick back really aggressively in your hands, and there's loads of lean through corners as well. It's also quite noisy in here, and there isn't even any lumbar support for the driver's seat at all, no matter what trim you go for. It's not in the options list or anything, so this isn't an especially comfortable place to be on long journeys. Not just because of these seats, but also because of this bouncy ride. So this isn't particularly great on the road, but is it cheap enough to be happy to accept that as a compromise? Well, BYD hasn't taken the same approach as MG when it comes to pricing for its electric vehicles. So this is cheaper than a number of its rivals, but it's not crazily cheaper than everything else like an MG4 is. It does come with loads of equipment as standard though. There's 3 trim levels with the Atto 3, and even the entry-level model gets heated front seats, adaptive cruise control, keyless entry and start. It is strange that even in the range-topping trim, you can't get rain-sensing wipers though. And while you might not have heard of this brand, you can rest assured that this is a very safe new car. It received the full 5-star rating from safety experts Euro NCAP. So the BYD Atto 3 is a very interesting new electric SUV with some real positives, like the new battery technology it has, which should mean that the lifespan of the battery is better than those in other electric SUVs. It's also got a great infotainment system, it comes with loads of equipment, but the problem is it's really not particularly good on the road. And there are a growing number of other electric SUVs that are available for similar money, which are more polished in more areas. Thanks for watching this review. If you want to see another one, then click there. And if you want to read our review of the Atto 3 and get a great deal on your next car, go to our website there.